Hello and welcome. As always, I'm your host, Casimir Basilius, Imperial Lord. And assuming things are working here, after our slight technical difficulties, we'll get to it. And it does appear, despite a few errors, things appear to be working. So, I suppose without further ado, let's get to it. Here we are. So it is, of course, Solo Tabletop RPG Day. Not like some sort of day, but, the day we run the Solo Tabletop RPG on. I have had, now that I think about it, a few other technical errors. So, we'll see how things go. Ideally, things are working. But we might have a few things not open, a few things unprepared. But things should work. I mean, it's technical errors. Our broadcasting device failed the other day. And what was that? Things are not working properly. We appear to have hit some subspace disturbance or something. Hello? 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 Why is that doing that? Hello? Well, is this even on the receiving end? It is. That is so unfortunate. As I said, technical errors. Well, as it appears, our battleship is currently under attack. I will have to deal with some issues, it appears. Why? Unfortunate. Why would that even be happening, though? One moment. Hello? Okay. That was unfortunate. It appears that the robots of the Coalition decided to attempt to sort of attack our, ship. Not directly attack, of course. They are experts at digital things. Datanet hacking and all that. Luckily, we were able to solve it. Our AIs were able to fight them off. So, my apologies. I'm not sure why we would be receiving a broadcast from them here. Strange. Well, for those of you who are long time, mostly for a few players from a campaign long ago, they know that the rules of the coalition may or may not have something to do with subspace. Well, not the existence of subspace. So, where to begin? Long ago, the robots, well, it was revealed, robots of the coalition are one of the few factions anyway, that have rumors of a subspace construction, building things in subspace, hiding things in subspace, and all that. Anyway, we might have passed one of their bases or something. As we are in transit currently, I am off to attend a meeting with other Imperial Lords. Hence, well, broadcasting from our ship and traveling through subspace and all that. But things are working. We appear to have exited their area of influence, or at least our AIs have fought them off. Of course, Imperial AIs are superior to those of the robots of the coalition. Sort of. But luckily, we're back on track. So, let's get entirely back on track. It is, of course, Solo Sunday. And that means, well, I was trying to avoid saying Solo Sunday because it's not really Sunday for you, is it? Unless you're watching this on Sunday. I don't think well, it's Sunday in the galaxy. For those of you who know the way our calendar works, you can look up in the top left, see that it is the 28th day of the 8th month. And if you know the Galactic Standard System, you know that the last day of the month, there's only 7 days in a week, 4 weeks in a month, exactly, entirely, every single time. So, for those of you who know the way the calendar works, you'll see 28 and know that it's a Sunday. As for anybody out there in the galaxy watching who's not who's not Elysian, it's Sunday. It's Sunday. For those of you who are from alternate dimensions, it might not be Sunday. Who knows? Unimportant. But it is the day of dice. So we have our dice. We have our campaign. I'm sorry. We'll get to it in just a minute. Of course, I am a bit distracted. As I said, we've been having technical issues, including attacks by the robots of the coalition. And so, of course, now, on my neural data pad, I'm receiving reports, just constant reports from my crew. So I'm a little distracted. It also doesn't help that our multidimensional broadcasting device messes with my implants. So, But strangely enough, well, not really strangely enough, because we use the extra-dimensional broadcasting device to broadcast, it doesn't really have any effect on the broadcast, usually. But it does have an effect on my own personal augmentations. So, that's just what we have to deal with. But, I'll be receiving reports for a while, which is always fun. I mean, you can't see them, but they take up half my vision. So, Anyway, I suppose I could just minimize them. Or I can make them take up my whole vision, just because the display is over one eye, the holographic display that is, doesn't mean I can't use it with both eyes. Of course, a neural data pad, little computer that goes in your brain to allow, well, computing via thought. Well, how do I put this? They're in your brain. They can display directly into your eyes or your brain directly, more so than only your eyes. You can have it just directly into your brain. And if you're worried about being hacked, it's relatively safe. For instance, If the robots of the coalition tried to hack my brain, I would immediately get alerted and disconnect my neural data pad from the net, which is, just a safety procedure. However, there are ways to hack through that, technically speaking. I'd have to bring up the big book of hacking for that, though. And we're not going to spend the time to bring up the big book of hacking because, well, that's not what we're here for today. We've already rambled more than enough. I'm just, multitasking, getting rid of all these error messages and reports while, sort of delaying while I get all that done. Wasn't expecting that. It was even unrelated to our earlier technical issues, probably, hopefully. One can hope. Otherwise, we have far bigger errors involving, not errors, far bigger concerns involving the robots of the coalition, which would be very concerning. Okay, one other thing I should point out, I suppose. It is, as much as it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say, especially openly, without being accused of, say, treason. But as much as I point out that the Empire's the best at things, it's not entirely true that the Empire are flatly, well, any individual lord, most of them, the Empire as a whole. The Empire as a whole is, of course, superior. But as has been probably stated before, every lord has a baseline of imperial technology. They are encouraged to maintain and use that baseline. We're not given any more than the baseline. We're not really able to build non-template dimensional shifting drives or any ultra advanced imperial techs. We build standard imperial technology, which is superior to the majority of the galaxy, but I would be probably flat out lying if I said that our AI is better than the AI of the robots of the coalition. I'd have to double check that statement, but that might be an inaccurate statement if we're being honest. We can check that. I'm willing to check. I believe it should be right here, so I shouldn't have to go far to find that information. But it will take, like a half a second. Here we are. Yep. Well, that's the coalition AI is on par with our shipboard AI, if we're being technical. Of course, there's higher tier imperial things for, imperial core forces and all that. But for your average imperial lord, versus coalition match our AI. Luckily, if you don't know the way data nets and hacking work, we have the home field advantage. The attacker is almost always at a disadvantage than the defender. Specifically for AIs in server networks. That's not true if two individuals were to try and hack each other. If one initiates the hack, the defender does not automatically get a bonus for being the defender. Specifically, networks are their own things. You can have a network with its own architecture, and it has its own map and so forth. In that case, specifically in a network case, not just in the net, in your own network, you have usually an advantage that an attacker doesn't have, as the attacker is in your net. The attacker can only allocate so much to your net. The attacker can attack your net using their net if they have a net, but you're still at an advantage. just to the way network architecture works, it's unlikely that the attacker is going to have a full network architecture dedicated to attack. They're likely not going to be able to send a lot of their programs into your network. Probably. You can, like technically, hacking's a weird thing. So technically you can dedicate your entire server to an attack, but then where's your defense? And that makes it so much easier to be counterattacked, even if somebody's just not dedicating their entire server to a counterattack. Basically, in short, we'd have to get into the hacking rules. I said I wasn't going to do that shit. Computers and devices and servers and everything have allocated power and defenses. Your average user doesn't have these things. They have processing power, but not defenses. I mean, they have the ability to defend themselves, but not a dedicated network architecture. The terminology they use in like Cyberpunk is sort of a data fortress. They don't have a data fortress if you're a normal non-server dedicated hacker. If you are server dedicated, then yes, you would have a so-called data fortress. And that provides you a bit more defense. Your processing power is what you use to run programs. You also have memory, which is also used to store programs that aren't necessarily active in processing. It takes time to load a program from storage into processing. So, if you're attacking, you probably don't have your entire network dedicated to an attack. Probably, because then you don't have memory running for the defense of your server. Thus, you have a bit of a disadvantage there. Secondly, the person you're hacking has their data fortress, so to speak. Therefore, you have to get through their defenses if you're the attacker, and they can attack your network avatar, so to speak, without having to go through a fortress. You're extending your access into their network as opposed to them extending their access into your network, thus giving a defensive advantage. Anyway, that's the basics of it. That's genuinely only the basics of it. And we're not going to go any further than that because we could get into specifically tracking things through the net, remote connections, all the ways to get around it, all the options like having multiple attackers and this entire things. But then if you have multiple attackers, you can have multiple defenders. It's a wild land, the networks. It's a wild land. Best not think about it. But in short, luckily, the robots of the coalition were the attackers, and we were the defenders. Thus, we had an advantage. That doesn't, however, mean the defender always wins. The defender can indeed lose. It's just they have an advantage. Now, if both, I said I wasn't going to, but here we are. If both entities are in the net and not their own networks, then there is no advantage or disadvantage per se. Because both of them are on equal field, even if they have networks, if they're in basically a neutral space, they don't have defending advantage, etc., etc. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. But that's not why we're here. We're already 20 minutes in, and here we are. Then again, admittedly, I didn't start the day thinking we were going to be attacked by the robots of the coalition. So, you know, surprise! Turns out we needed to talk about networking, and not the networking skill, which is a skill you use to communicate with other people and has nothing to do with networks. Look, let's roll dice. Let's roll dice. So, I'm fighting. I'm fighting the urge here. What urge? The urge to go on a tangent and ramble more about the topic of networking, not the skill, specifically computers, computer networks, hacking, and all that kind of thing. If you can't tell, even when I don't want to go on a tangent, it's difficult because I just love Galactic Requiem and talking about Galactic Requiem. Literally every aspect, even just game design. We have world building Wednesdays because, well, world building, game design, just everything. I enjoy all of it. So, sometimes when something like this occurs, it gets difficult to get back on track because, I mean, I really just want to talk about hacking now, which I'll be honest, needs a little bit of work, rules wise. Not not work. How do I put it? Testing. It needs testing. The rules work. The framework for those rules is there, and theoretically, on paper, hacking works. But we haven't had a player like we've had players, hackers. We haven't had a full on server versus server, like network architecture versus network architecture or network architecture versus AI. We haven't pushed the system to its limits, We've been doing this for a long time. We've pushed combat to its limits. We've tested, I mean, sure, there's probably things we're missing, things that haven't been tested, but, like so much combat has occurred in Galactic Requiem that basically I'm confident in it. I'm confident in it. The amount of hacking that's occurred is significantly less than the amount of combat. Thus, I'm not entirely sure. The rules haven't been absolutely rigorously, thoroughly tested to the extent of, throwing the absolute maximum ridiculous methods in, We haven't had somebody try and say, run independent programs being well, like demon programs, not literal demons, but semi-sentient independent programs that act on their own. That or viruses, self-acting viruses. Just, we haven't, had somebody get maximum processing unit, which I believe is like 20 processing unit, and dedicate every single one of those processing units, which goes into the points, by the way. You can have like 0.3 processing. So, we haven't had somebody dedicate a maxed server with 20 processing all on self-acting viruses and attack demon programs against something. We haven't fully stress tested the system, We haven't tried every possible combination. We haven't tried every possible situation. We haven't done everything in it, So with normal combat, we have basically done everything. We've seen how it all works. Same with pretty much Starship combat. Same with a lot of other things. We have a very good idea of the way even the most ridiculous parts of it work. While we don't for hacking. Hence, it needs some work. When I say work, more so testing. I need to at some point either get some players to do it or just sit down and test it myself. So, yeah. Anyway, without further ado, let's roll some dice and watch Juliana Aldous go on her adventures. Finally. Now that things appear to have settled down, my conscripts are in their proper places, the enlisted personnel are going about their business. So, let's get to it. When last we left off, it was a bit of a not ideal situation, but we completed a mission, got paid, I believe, and so we're in between missions. We have a better mission that hopefully we'll handle better. But we have a lot of other things. We've basically gotten our truck to the location. They will, I believe we transferred the money into our account. It should say 80 something, I believe, if my math is and memory is right. Yep. Okay. So we did transfer funds and everything, I believe. So the plan is going to be to, I mean, so if you're wondering, so you're saying you need to test hacking heavily. Juliana Aldous has a neural data pad. You even have right there a hacking profile. And look at these programs. Why don't you just test it right now? No. No. Juliana Aldous is not good at anything. Well, she's good at combat, I suppose. But she's not an expert at anything. She's real good at shooting. She's okay at melee. As we went over last time, she's a caster. She does magical stuff. Terrible at it. Terrible at it. Barely enough energy points to vaporize one person. I mean, it was quite an attack, instantly killing someone. So, not bad. But she can do that like once a day if she succeeds at a check. So, not the best caster. She's worse at hacking than she is casting. So, yeah, technically, like, she has 5 in computers. So, I suppose she can try and hack something. But you see how our max is 9? 6 plus 3 is 9, so our max is 9. We have 5 in it. That's not necessarily bad. You don't need to max your skill to be able to use it. But hacking happens to be exceptionally difficult. Like, you don't need to dedicate yourself to being a hacker, because a lot of people you face won't have dedicated themselves to being a hacker. So just being competent in it is usually fine. But if you want to, it's risky for us even. I say that, but like, we can just disconnect. Disconnecting has its own risks. It's an entire system. Juliana Aldous isn't good enough at it that I'm confident doing it in a lot of situations. I mean, we hacked a car and a few other things, so, on occasion, we hacked the vehicle too. Like, there are times. But if I were to have you learn all this hack more, it's not even the skill that's the matter. The skill's important, don't get me wrong. But I would, of course, want to increase the skill. But what I would also want, backup programs and more programs with more versatility. We have a lot of control programs, which give us a lot of ability to control microphones, alarms, cameras, vehicles, bots, objects, doors, elevators, displays, terminals, manipulators, and printers. I wish these were 8 and not 4, but we have what we have. Could probably get better variants if they didn't have stealth, but stealth is important on control programs. Could probably even increase it if we didn't have 3 controls in one. But if you're wondering why would you have 3 controls in, well, if you're wondering why you'd have stealth, because if you don't have stealth, there's the modifier of +4 that you see is not applied to the enemy's detect check to detect whether they're being hacked or not. Because you can succeed and still be detected. You can succeed and not be detected. But the 4 would not be applied to their like defense. It would not be applied to the ability to be detected. Anyway. So basically that's why stealth is there. Why do we have 3 controls in one? If we had less, it would take up less memory, and we could probably boost this number. The reason we have 3 in 1 is because, well, first off, it saves a bit of program space. Second off, it allows you to use the program on the fly. Technically, it is a bit slower if you had them individually. I mean, I'm not sure the exact math behind the terabytes and so forth. I'd have to double check whether it is actually feasible, but I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it would be slightly more space intensive, I think. It would be slightly more space intensive, and that would mean you could load less programs at once. And as I mentioned before, if you swap programs, that takes time. It takes time to unload and then load up a new program. Therefore, you wouldn't be able to use all of them instantly. You'd have to say vehicle and bot were their own things. I have vehicle loaded, but I don't have bot loaded. I need to hack that bot. It's going to take some time to unload and then reload, and then I can hack the bot. Oh, wait, but I also now I want to hack that vehicle. So I'm going to have to unload and reload. Maybe I should just swap the door for, and you have to manage it then. I think, well, that is how that works. But I think memory-wise, it was less efficient to have multiple at the same tier. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was less efficient, like terabytes wise, which also affects your processing power. Processing power being, as stated, the amount of programs you can load. For instance, we have 4.4 out of 8. So theoretically, for us, it theoretically would be more feasible to have multiple of each. But even then, might want multiple armor programs loaded in at once because somebody could attack my armor program, or multiple other programs. For instance, right now, with one program kill loaded and only having one, well, if it gets attacked, we can no longer attack their programs, which is not ideal. Well, if it gets attacked, its number goes down, and then eventually it can't attack and it gets destroyed. So having multiple of the same can be useful, etc., etc. There's an entire system. Anyway. So, I suppose that's one thing we should save up some money for. Our vehicle's slightly injured, So after we get paid and complete our little mission, we will return to base, at least for now. Which will take a little bit of time, but I mean, basically, if you want to know how, we're not going to measure the time. It's a couple of minutes. But we'd basically just go over to here, turn there, go down this road, go down this road, go down there, and then we'd arrive here. I mean, it's not that complex. So we'll arrive back at base, see whether we can't get some maintenance done. So let's scroll to our vehicle. That's going to be 1, 2, 3. There's going to be exactly 3 repairs to get this thing repaired. Which we will have the gang do for us. That was weird. And it should take like what? 3 hours maybe? I think it's at least, I mean, if we want them to get it done, it'll be 3 also hours to get it done. So we'll have that being repaired. So we're not heading to the racetrack right away. Unless we want to get there via another method. 1 second. So, how much ammo did we use? Too much. Too much ammo. We technically gained money. I can't complain. The pain of using armor-piercing ammo. Let's double check. Yep. One final little bit of math to make sure I'm not getting this wrong. Go to our items catalog. Go to the ammo section. Look at armor-piercing ammo. %600. Okay. Then an additional tax. Because we're buying from gangsters. Oh, well, let's get our armor repaired while we're here. Were we injured? Yes. We'll also get healed while we're here. But we need to make a check for that one. Because you can't just take 10 on that. I don't think. I'd have to double check the rules for that. But let's get our ammo first. Because I have it open. Free. What? Hello? Things are still working. Good. 480 plus $500 total. Dropping us down to 2, getting us back up to 5, and getting us one more energy cell for our normal rounds. We need to be a bit more selective in our ammo use. I mean, in that case, it was relatively important that we were using armor-piercing rounds, sort of. But let's be honest, when the gang is charging us $160 per magazine, well, not really energy cell, more so than mag, then it gets annoying. Because, I mean, that's a lot of money out of pocket, especially because we burst fire a lot. But then again, burst fire is effective. So, you know, pros and cons. Pros and cons. We also should get training at some point for our melee weapon for some specials. Now let's roll on health. Assuming I can find thing. 13 is enough for the doctor to do it. D4 plus 2. 5. Probably shouldn't have healed, I'll be honest. Probably could have rolled less though, so. Bring us to 25. You will, however, have to note. Not fair. Nope. You don't really have an easy way to note this. We'll just put it here. First aid used. Can't do it twice in one day. So that's important to note. Okay. We're re-equipped. Vehicles getting repaired. Armor's getting repaired. We're getting healed. Things are looking up. I mean, we made money in the end. So, I mean, we're going to find something to spend that on at some point. I mean, there's a lot we could spend it on. I just want more before I go spending it. I mean, you know, as an Imperial Lord, I personally think that 86,000 words are hard is a very small amount of credits. To you and Aldous, or your average galactic citizen, yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable amount of credits. You and Aldous could buy a feat or a car or a lot of things. You know? A lot of things. Probably. I don't know. That's not like enough to buy a battleship. I'm used to looking at price charts in which. No. I was going to say I'm used to looking at price charts in which battleships are things, but technically, by the standard The price charts I look at have 10 battleships counted as a purchase. Technically for the Empire, it's like 2 battleships a purchase. But for the rest of the galaxy, it's like 10 battleships a purchase, you know? Nation scale things be like that. I'm talking for 1 credit unit, which is, if you didn't know, 1 credit unit, which is a nation scale measurement of money. It's literally just credits, but it's a unit of credits on the nation scale. 1 credit unit is 10 billion galactic standard credits. So, you know, when the smallest number I'm dealing with is, actually, that's not even true. Because if you want to be technical, lesser nations have point, like 0.001 credit units if you want to be technical. But like, depending on your scale, we technically use 0.1 credit units. We use 1 to 0.1. Of course, we use a lot more. But measurement-wise, I mean, I believe we earn like 500,000 credit units a year. Over 500,000 a year, yeah. So, you know, but like maintenance of armies and fleets and other certain maintenance things cost like 0.1 credit unit. So we deal with that, but usually it's like, you know, I'm going to buy a fleet. That's going to be 1 credit unit for 1,000 frigates, you know? So I'm not sure what you'd buy with 86,000 galactic standard credits. It's that weird point, you know, where it's enough to buy a lot of things, but not enough to buy important things like a starship, even just a lesser starship. I mean, like a shuttle, a inner in system shuttle, mass produced, you can get for like 100,000 credits. So it's near that much. Could buy another set of heavy combat armor. I already have heavy combat armor, like, you get my point? And so it'd be a great idea to buy feats. They cost 50 to 100. Could also get cybernetics, but I'm reluctant to drop that amount from what we have. Because I look at that, I'm like, 80,000 credits? That's enough to get a good purchase, but then I won't have 80,000 credits to buy something that I might need. And right now, I can't think of anything I need. I can think of things that'd be useful, but not things I'd need. So, you know, it's like, could get things, could get a lot of things that are useful, but do we want to not have money? Like, we could get a droid. We could upgrade our AI. We could get a droid to put our AI in. Get all sorts of cybernetics. Get a slightly not as good as powered armor exoskeleton for our armor. Like, there's no limit. We could buy all sorts of special ammo rounds. A shotgun. That's one of the things I wanted. Yes, I remembered. I've been over this so many times. Normally I hate shotguns, but the utility of them in this could be useful. Probably get one for cheap, but then we'd have to supply it with ammo, which is also cheap, but is it worth it? I mean, we already bought the melee weapon for now, so no. There are certain things we can't buy, like casting feats. So, no point in that. Could buy training in casting, but we can't do that here. They don't have casters around here, so. I mean, it's not that they don't have casters, they don't have dedicated place to train a caster, you know? So let's figure this out. We do have a mission that needs to be done probably in a few days, which is to head to a race track and, if I recall correctly, intimidate a driver. Let's double check. What was our mission? Intimidate a racing driver into losing the race. Driver, however, has a vendetta with a rival, and the rival's insane. So, that's something we want to do, but we don't, we have to wait a couple of days before we do that. Well, before the race day. Technically, we could go and meet with the person right now. But, I mean, do we want to do that right now? They might change their mind between now and race day. But if we go on race day, we have far less time to get it done. So that's another conundrum. I suppose, if we're thinking about it, we could... I mean, it really depends on how evil you and all this wants to be. Are we the villain? Or, I mean, there's no good or bad, really. But, I mean, there are methods to get this done. You could threaten the driver. That's a solution. But is that a solution Juliana Aldous would take? Probably not without good reason. Not without good reason. Juliana Aldous, on a contract like this, is not just going to go and threaten someone. Not outright. Maybe partially. I mean, if I was in this situation, well, actually, my plan wouldn't work. I'll be honest, my initial thought of a plan wouldn't work. I believe the entire point of getting somebody to lose a race I believe the entire point in getting somebody to lose a race while still participate in it is so it is usually in a way that people don't know that they're being convinced to lose a race. So my initial thought was, I mean, personally, what I would do, send in the conscripts. That was my genuine initial thought. Send in the conscripts. Have two conscripts follow the driver. And, indeed threaten the driver, but follow the driver around at the place and so forth in a threatening manner to remind the driver that they are to, in fact, lose. But that's a little bit obvious then, isn't it? So, obviously, this is why I don't deal with petty disputes like that. More grand scale, that's my business, As we just went over with credit units and fleets and the amount of money my empire makes in a year, like larger scale thinking. If the planet isn't doing what you want, threaten the planet. It's not like we as the empire care that everybody knows that the planet is submitting to the Empire. In fact, we probably prefer that. Because then people go, oh, look how powerful the Empire is. You know? So, not really my area of expertise. We'll see what Juliana Aldous does about it. Does she want to go and meet with the driver now? I think she'll wait a day, at the very least, to get healed up. It's going to be a few hours before the things work. The race is not for like a couple of days, so we can wait a day before we go and do it. We will, of course, accept the contract. So, let us note our thing down. The thing we are noting, by the way, is removing that, making sure our action die are full, making sure our that's also full. Good. Health should be full. Well, that is the right number, right? Let's do some quick math. 10 plus 15 is indeed 25. Do you want to know how we got that math? Even though it's a little bit of a tangent. Average NPC has a hit dice of 8, meaning it's 2 hit points per level. Yeah, 8 is 2 hit points per level after first. The first level, you use your con. So 15 plus 5 times 2 is 10, because we're level 6, minus 1 for the first level, equals 25. Let's see. There was one other important thing I wanted to. Energy points, that's what it was. I wanted to note that my energy points have been refilled. The reason these are listed separately, by the way, there's normal magic, then there's your infinite magic pool, technically speaking. It takes like an action to regain a level 0, but it can only do level 0 things, like 4 damage. So, you know, it's important to note because it's separate from your normal energy point pool. Technically, you could do all 6 level 0 and then do 7 additional level 0, but why would you? Because it's just smarter to not, but if you needed to, you could. You can also lower casting point cost to 0. Like, specifically, say we were casting a level 1 spell, we could use our skill to try and lower the cost to 0. The downside being it's not easy to do, but it is per point. So, like, technically you could cast a max level, I say max, there's no real max, but you could cast a high tier cast, one of the highest tiers, which is like 20 energy points, and you could choose to lower it by 1, which is just as easy as lowering a level 1 by 1. It's the amount of points you're lowering it by as the difficulty. But we're not good at casting, so I mean we're getting better. We took 2 feats and are training more energy points. So anyway, we'll wait at the we'll wait at the gang base Woods are hard till the next day before we decide what to do as we spend some time getting our stuff repaired, getting healed, buying items from them, all that. And once we complete all that, we'll read some more of our book. I'm curious. This is also really not important. This is genuinely, well, maybe not. This is one of the least important things we've done, which is look up the rules for reading books. It usually only matters in very select circumstances. So it's about a minute a page. Also affected by int mod, which isn't high, I don't believe. Yep, we have one, so no benefit. And we have a neural data pad, which does provide benefit. But, and I note for the record, some augmentations, cybernetic or biological, increase reading speed by up to 10 times or more. Or less. I mean, sometimes it's 2 times, etc., etc. But downloading data can be instantaneous with a neural file with the ability for direct injection of data. If reading digital data with a neural data pad, you can read at a rate of 4x speed and find data and or research at 600 times speed if there is a search function. We're not reading digital data, and we're not augmented to do so. So, I mean, we're augmented to read digital data, but we're not augmented in a way that we can look at normal books and then basically convert it to data. So, she's reading normally. But basically, let's see, just for fun. She'll read 30 minutes, so about 30 pages. Why not? One of the most, not really useless, but do we like graphs and charts and all that? Well, luckily, for some reason, we broke down the ability to, we can look at it and go, okay, general information, time modifier base, time per page about a minute, words per minute 250 words or 1 page, words per round. Yes, we can break it down to words per round, just in case. As rare as a situation in which that's important happens, it does happen. And if you're thinking that's not much of a chart, well, technically you can go down. That's for general information. Like there's also a broad topic, focused topic, narrow topic, obscure topic, and unique topic, assuming you can understand it. For instance, you have some idea how to read an ancient Eldritch-ish language, but you don't fully understand it, and there's a lot of missing context. You can technically try and read that Eldritch language at like 12.5 words a minute, or 0.05 pages a minute. Or we have a little breakdown there, so it's about 20 minutes a page, or about 1 word per round, which can come up, like, as noted, let's say you're reading some Eldritch thing, trying to translate for your team before the creature gets to you. It can come up. So sometimes you need to know that kind of thing. How many words can you get done before the thing happens? So how much information does the player get? If they get 5 words, I can have this thing written out in front of me and go, I'm going to read the first 5 words to the player because they spent 5 rounds looking at it. So they only get the first 5. Or maybe the player says, I want to pick at random or start in the middle, etc., etc. I can do the same. I can pick 5 at random from around it or in a row from the middle or however they want to break it down, etc. These are all options. Let's see. So she'll get about 30 pages done. That'll be her day, pretty much. She'll go to the mess hall, sort of the gang hideout and just see what they have. Probably crunchy bits. So after that, she'll rest. How are her allies doing? That's an important question. Wrong map. This is the right map. If a day passes, how are her friends doing? Healed, healed, and healed. Okay, so they were healed last time. That means they should be fine. But I don't think she's going to take them with her. We also have something going on we should probably check on. Which is our target that we need to extract. Sort of. We're waiting for the opportunity to do so. So let's see how the enemies are doing. If they succeed, they'll get a point. 13 plus. Let me go to my NPC book. $14. No luck this time. The forces that would be here are not skilled in it. So they'll probably eventually get better forces in to deal with it. But the average combat troops aren't going to make much progress gathering information on the target. Especially in enemy territory and all that. Speaking of, I suppose we should do a little bit more maintenance. Wrong one. This one. So, how is the war going? We'll roll for our allies, who have a severe advantage. For those of you, I think it's archived. Maybe it's not. It might have been right before we started archiving things. But in our initial war rolls, our side, statistically, we started them on even ground. We started both factions on even ground, genuinely. For some reason, our faction kept succeeding. Like, they didn't lose a roll. Well, that's not entirely true. They tied in, like, the ocean part of the conflict. if I recall correctly. They like tied in the ocean and didn't make much progress in space. But basically, in the land and air, they just devastated the enemy forces. And every time you succeed, you gain a bonus, and the enemies have taken so many losses that they're technically at a penalty. So that's why our forces are at a bonus. With a 17 on the roll versus 5. Oh gosh. Math time. 17 plus 4 minus 5 equals 3 degrees of success. Okay. So we'll move our forces up. We're not going to bother placing enemy forces or going into great detail. We could stat out the units, like as army units, and then run this as mass combat. But we're using the quick rules because, well, mass combat isn't the focus of this campaign. So with air superiority, our forces will push up, making progress. This is the primary problem. This is a problem, but given that there's rough forest, it's going to be relatively difficult to move vehicles through. So their idea is hopefully to go around and secure to there. But for now, they're going to push through to here. Technically, the city's a little bit of a threat, but not entirely, as the city is semi-independent. It doesn't technically belong to either faction. So it's not like they have to worry too much about it being an enemy city. They do want to capture the city eventually, but they prefer to deal with just generally the enemy forces first. So this scale doesn't move because that's large scale. We're not going to move the border yet. We don't know whether this is going to hold, but basically we'll move up the forces. Yeah, engineering and support will also move up slightly, as will artillery, just to get a little bit better range. So they try and push in. Technically, as these are mechanized infantry, they'll send at some point infantry in to sort of secure. The right side's not the best. Honestly, what we're probably going to have to do is going to have to send another unit over to here to secure from this side, just to be safe, honestly. Technically, we could, like, cross here, but we don't have a lot of forces on this front currently. Technically, there would be forces over here somewhere, and there are forces over here somewhere. Like, not on this map, but like, you know, to the left and right, there are additional forces. It's not like they need to worry, but they don't want to leave that side fully exposed, hence leaving the mechanized infantry sort of here. I mean, while this is engineering, support, and artillery, there are units there with them. It is an entire battalion, so they're not defenseless. They're a bit less good at fighting off units, but they're not defenseless. So it should be good enough, at least to somewhat advance the positions. But basically, that's not today. That's basically over the entire time we've been here. So over several days, they make it what? What's the furthest? 2. We'll say 2. It's like 1 to 2 kilometers. That one's like technically 1, give or take. I mean, depends on whether you count this as an open square. But they basically advanced 10. Yep, 10 kilometers. Of course, they moved further, but I mean like beyond enemy lines. So, yeah. Wait, we did get 3 successes. Let me make a quick note. Just so I don't forget the number and I can work with it in the future. Because successes do provide bonuses in future rolls. Technically, they are lost if you lose, but we haven't lost yet. So the bonuses continue to pile up. So let's quickly note that. Three tiers of success in military engagement. There we are. Let's go back up. So we're re-equipped. Our allies in the military are making progress. If they eventually get to here, like we if they get to here, ideally they'd have to actually get to here. It is risky to leave the section we're in, I'll be honest. If you didn't know, like, lore-wise, we're in a gang-controlled section of the city. It's the reason why the enemies can't just pile forces, and along with the fact that there's a war going on, to find the target they're looking for. They are looking for the target, but they can't just fully crack down on it or seize it or send in full forces, which is both good for us and bad. Because outside of the gang-controlled area, they have a lot more resources. So we can't really leave easily. So theoretically, the army just getting to the city doesn't necessarily help us. But it might even make things worse because then the enemy military might be right up next to us. But if they can get all the way there, we can get the target out easy. But I think we'll probably have extracted the target far before that. Maybe, probably, hopefully. We'll see how things go. Um, Back to the other map. Is there any other maintenance? I know there's stuff I wanted to do. Like, work with our gang in its stat block. Hmm. So, this is one of those times, I feel restricted to only working on our character. I mean, of course, we just did some roles for nation stuff. I feel somewhat restricted to working with our character, but I also want to show nations and organizations, factions, that kind of thing. I mean, it's not like we can't. It's literally just me going, I can't, can I? I can, and there's nothing stopping me. Um, let's see. Hmm. What do? What is the plan? Well, it is technically the next day, so I suppose the plan is going to be to go and deal with the target. But also, we've rambled and gone off topic and prepared and done little thus far. So, why don't we call it short here? And then next time, well, we're building Wednesday. We'll prepare an entire scenario, situation, racetrack, the entire thing. Then we'll actually get to that mission. But it is, of course, near time for coffee. So, even though it's short, we'll call it there. We'll try. Oh, no. No. Come on. Don't do it. Don't do it. Hello. Come on. Shit. And we, once more, yeah. So, forgive the buzzing. We're going to call it there. More robust for coalition. Look, I, I, I wish I was joking because I'm not. This isn't something on my end, despite the timing. So unfortunately, is there any way? Hello? No, there's no way. Well, I'd have to mess with it more. But it doesn't look like there's a way to get rid of the buzzing. Not right this moment. Not without messing with things. So, forgive me. We'll have to do our outro with this horrid buzzing. How bad is it on the other end? Not sure. It could just be. Nope, it is real. It's not just on my end. My apologies. We're building Wednesday. We'll prepare this stuff. And then on next Solo Sunday, we'll embark on it. My apologies for the lackluster tabletop RPG stuff recently. I will try and do better at it all. More world building, more actual dice and combat, more social interactions, more everything. I've been rather busy recently running a new campaign, preparing for it and all that, and also just other things. So I've been a little bit busy, but we'll try and get quality up. Starting with getting rid of this buzzing. So, once more, my apologies for the buzzing. My genuine apologies. I have ordered my conscripts and crew and everybody on this ship of ours to scan the area for the robots of the Coalition. Wherever they're attempting this from, they will be dealt with violently. Have a good day, and my apologies.